Okay, let's go. Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to National Geographic Traveller Travel Geeks online. That was a good start. Putting Saskatchewan on your travel map. I was so worried about saying Saskatchewan wrong that I messed up the words I say every day. Welcome, everyone. It's really great to have you all here. My name's Jo Fletcher Cross. Oh, goodness me, my own name. Jo Fletcher Cross, an associate editor at National Geographic Traveller, and I will be moderating and hosting the event this evening. Let me explain to you how the event works. If you haven't been to a Travel Geeks before, we used to do them in person, and now we do lots and lots online, which means that we can reach lots of people. So we're very glad that you can all join us. What happens is we will chat with the panel for about 45 minutes. I've got lots of questions here and I've got lots of things I want to ask them, and they're an incredible group of experts, so they've got lots to say, I hope. And then at the end, we'll have about 15 minutes for a Q&A from you. So you'll see at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A function and a chat function. Now, please use the chat function throughout. I'd love to know where you're all from, you know, if you've got things you want to put up there, links, tell us about your experience in Saskatchewan, please do. We'd love to hear from you. And there'll also be members of the National Geographic Traveller team in there posting links to relevant content and answering questions that we can. There's also a Q&A function, which you'll see down the bottom. If you want to ask the panel a question in the Q&A section at the end, make sure you pop your question in there. I'll see all the questions in Q&A, but I might miss them in chat, so just make sure you put them in there. So you can do that at any point. If there's something that comes up and you pop a question in and I think, oh, we should answer that now, then I will. But otherwise, we'll leave it till about the last 15 minutes. So that's how it's going to work. It's a super easy, chatty session, and I'm just going to introduce our panel. So as I said, my name is Jo, and I work for National Geographic Traveller. With us tonight, we also have Ashlyn George, who is an award-winning adventurer, travel writer, photographer, and content creator based in Saskatoon. We've also got Brenda Peterson, who's an interpretation officer for Parks Canada. She guides visitors to the Grasslands National Park and was born and raised on the prairie, so I think has lots of insider knowledge for us. We've also got Felipe Gomez, who is a musician, adventurer, educator, and content creator. He's the 2021 Saskatchewan Wanderer. I was really worried about saying that as well. It's a scheme that showcases Saskatchewan. I'm going to ask you more about that later, Felipe, but I think we'll have a great take on Saskatchewan for us all here. And we've also got Stuart Foster, who's a travel writer and photographer. He's worked for National Geographic Traveller. He's travelled to Canada many times, runs the blog goeatdo.com. Stuart said that while in Saskatchewan, he trained with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police at the Regina base. I'm definitely asking you more about that later, Stuart, and your mounted experience. Yeah, lots of questions about that. I'm going to start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask questions to all of the panel. There might be questions that I ask to specific people. Ashlyn, I'm going to start with you, and it's a question that I am going to come to everyone for, but one of the things that you told me was that you've travelled to more than 60 countries, is that right? And you reached all 7 continents before the age of 30, which is extremely impressive. And I know you write about travel on your blog, The Lost Girl's Guide to Finding the World. You live in Saskatchewan. What makes you choose Saskatchewan when you've been almost everywhere in the world?
So first things first, I was born and raised here. My parents have a grain farm. They're still actively farming. So it's home in my heart for me. But I always say I've had the privilege of traveling so many places in the world. And with Saskatchewan, you don't actually have to cross any borders to have world-class experiences right here. And I love the outdoor and adventure, and I love nature. And like Saskatchewan is just full of epic nature experiences and outdoor activities.
Amazing, thank you so much. So yeah, let's open that up to everyone. What does Saskatchewan have to offer that other parts of Canada don't? You know, why Saskatchewan? Brenda, can I ask you that question?
Oh, that's a good one. I've been born and raised here. It's my husband and I ranch very close to Grasslands National Park. And after I retired from teaching, I was so lucky to go to work at Grasslands. And so now I can share with worldwide visitors the story of the prairies. And it's so rich. So there's great places to go. And I could tell you some of my favorites, but probably the Valley of a Thousand Devils. Nothing devilish there, but it has the most serene air about it. So yeah, there's history, there's culture. Yes, Saskatchewan is awesome. And we're just at the very south end of it. And but there's lots to do and lots to see and lots to learn. I love it here.
That's incredible, Brenda. Why is it called the Valley of a Thousand Devils?
Well, that comes from a little old lady one time came to visit the park with my dad and our family. And when she drove up to the valley, she said, oh, Valley of a Thousand Devils. Well, my dad thought that was so funny. He called it that ever since. So easy story.
Amazing. I'm going to name more things, good things like that now when I'm out and about.
Yeah.
Felipe, how about you? What does Saskatchewan offer that other places don't?
Well, you can tell by my accent, I'm not from here, right? I'm originally from Chile. I'm same as Ashley. I've been traveling all over the world before I moved to Canada, but I'm also traveled Canada to the slow pace of a bicycle from coast to coast, 11,000 kilometers. So I got a good sense of like experience, culture, and people. And after that, I realized that Saskatchewan is just a perfect combination between the friendliness of the people, but also the open space for adventure. We had 1 million people living in a province that's 5 times the UK. So there's people that will drive 12 hours to get groceries from the north coming down to the south. So if you had an adventurous spirit, you have a lot of room for that here.
Well, that's an appealing idea as well, that open space, isn't it, right now? I think we're all would like a bit of space. Stuart, you said earlier to us that Saskatchewan really made you fall in love with Canada. So what was it about Saskatchewan that you thought was special?
It's the road trip. It offered time to just stop every now and again and engage with people, chat with people. And I thought that was great because I felt that people really did make time to converse and explain what they really enjoyed about where they lived, what was special. I just had some great conversations, and that made it really, really special for me because it was my first. I'd been to Windsor in Ontario before just to get a stamp in the passport to keep ahead of my brother in the countries we've been to stakes. But it was the first time that I actually spent a prolonged period in Canada, and it was just magnificent, honestly. It's not the obvious first place to go because it's prairie country, and a lot of Canadians even said to me, it's kind of strange that that's the first place that you've spent a prolonged period because it's famed for the transatlantic highway passing through the prairies, and people have got this misconception that it's exclusively flat. Well, if you get further up into the north, it's rolling hills, it's forest, it's I think there's something like 100,000 lakes across the province, and it's quirky little fact: 31 times the size of Wales, a little bit more than 31 times the size of Wales. So you can really have some wonderful experiences, and that wide open landscape, as Felipe said, and just the people. Really, I mean, that it's so hearty, so good, and I've really felt made welcome over there, and it's meant that I've been back to Canada a lot of times subsequently. So yeah, I great place.
Thanks, Stuart. I think that's really helpful. I mean, I'll admit I've not been to Saskatchewan. I didn't know much about it before we started looking into it for this event, and it constantly surprises me. You said 100,000 lakes there, and I just nodded along as if that was quite normal. I mean, yeah, 100,000 lakes. That's extraordinary. I guess that gives a sense of scale in a way, doesn't it?
And somebody counted
1,000 lakes in, and everyone isn't under the water. So that's amazing. You talked about a road trip there as well, and I'd like to talk a bit about road trips because I believe that that's a pretty good way to get a feel for the place. Stuart, where did you go on your road trip? What was your itinerary like?
It was like this. It was all over. No, I basically landed in Saskatoon, spent a bit of time in Saskatoon, then headed up and went north to the Prince Albert National Park and beyond, and then sort of dropped back down over to Kyle, where I went to a ranch, spent a bit of time on a ranch. Then there's a little town called Moose Jaw, great name. and then over to Regina to leave. So I mean that was the framework, but those experiences were very, very varied and rich. And I mean I didn't even get to Grasslands National Park where Brenda gives the tours, and I heard some great stuff about the camping down there. But it's a really, really easy place to drive because as Felipe mentioned, the population isn't that great. And so the roads are pretty, they're not busy at all. So from the perspective of getting in your car and driving, it's easy driving and just a lot of fun because, you can pull over when you want, stop to take photographs of the landscape, the big open skies. And it really is nice, easy drive. And it's a great place for a road trip in that respect.
Thanks, Stuart. Do you, I should say that the rest of our panel, apart from Stuart, are all in Saskatchewan, which is a real joy. So, you're all in situ and you've all been around and about. Is it easy to do a road trip? I mean, if we did a road trip in the UK across the whole of, you could drive 12 hours and get to the end of the country, and you certainly wouldn't hit 100,000 lakes. Do you have to really prepare? Can you just get in a car and go? Or would you need to, really prep your vehicle, take the right things, book in advance? Ashlyn, what would you say?
So you can pretty much get in your car and go. You need to decide if you're going to do a lot of camping along the way to make sure you have the stuff you need, of course. But I think first and foremost, you would need a car to get everywhere. It's a little bit more difficult to get around just because of our big spaces here. So highly recommend a rental car. And then you can just kind of drive and go. Occasionally, you might want to book in advance if there are some more popular destinations and if you're here in high season. But I'm a fly by the seat of my pants kind of traveler, and I do it a lot here in Saskatchewan, and I never run into any issues with it.
That's good to know. Would you say you need to have an off-road vehicle? Is it okay just to have a regular car, or are you just more prepared because you're already in Canada?
I think a regular car is adequate enough. We do have a great highway and grid road system. You might need to be comfortable driving on gravel roads, but as far as that goes, the next thing you would need to be mindful of, if it was raining quite a bit in the last little while, some areas in the southern part of the province, you might want to be mindful of how wet things are. But otherwise, I think a regular vehicle should do you just fine.
Okay, and somebody's just said in the chat, please talk about the weather. And Felipe, would you be kind enough to show us the weather? Felipe showed us out of the window.
I'll show you guys.
They were like, it's really warm.
I see it's -2.
Yeah, -2 is not
which
warm.
is unseasonably warm this time of year.
I mean, it looks very beautiful. Yeah. So
yeah. But so, as Ashley say, you can drive here. Canadians, I actually learned to drive here. Canadians are Saskatchewan people are really used to driving these conditions. So everything slows down in winter and everyone is aware of how to drive in winter. And just on a tip, I will say Saskatchewan people is really curious about when you visit here. So I will add any detail from your country. To me, it was like the bicycle with the Chilean flag, right? I will put it upside the bar, upside the restaurant, and fair enough, somebody will come and talk to me and buy me a meal or have a beer with me. So I will embrace you being a tourist when you come here. Show them that you're interested in on the town, and next thing you know, you might be riding with horses, chasing bison. You don't know what they're going to invite you to it. I've been invited to one of the craziest, most cool experiences that you have to pay for it just for being there, and just because the people around me was curious about my curiosity about their own province.
That leads me really nicely, actually, Felipe, to another question that I wanted to ask, and it was about traveling as a solo traveler in Saskatchewan. It sounds like it would be a pretty good place to go as a solo traveler, because if you talk to people, people will talk to you. Would you say that's correct?
Yes, I was doing the classic bikepacking, sleeping on the forest, right? Yeah. But even one story is one guy, when you go up north, the distance gets a little bit like I can't reach a place between days. And one guy gave me all the trappers cabin map. They say, hey, these are the trappers cabin, you can stay on there. But Ashley can talk about it, like traveling as a solo female, like in Saskatchewan, Ashley.
I travel
Yeah,
mostly everywhere on my own here in the province. My one tip for you, if you're going into a small community, go stop in at the local coffee shop. That's where Coffee Row hangs out. That's where you get all the tips and hidden gems and locations that I don't even know about. And I've spent a lot of time traveling. So if you're in a community, stop in and chat with people. Coffee shop is the best place to find people willing to shoot the breeze with you.
Sounds good. Brenda, would you agree with that?
I agree. The coffee shop, that's where you find things out. Like if you came to Grasslands, come by the visitor center, and we have interpreters that will help you plan your trip. They will help you, take you on a hike, whatever you need. Line up the gas station for you. Tell you where the grocery store is, and everybody has connections. And when you're traveling down the road, don't forget to wave.
Also, sorry, just want to add something just coming from a different part of the world. If you're on the road and then you had a car problems, somebody will stop to check on you without even you asking for help. Like even if you're stopping, somebody will slow down and say, hey, is everything good? There's that culture of taking care of each other because the harsh of the weather in winter can be dangerous. So that's a big part of the community here. So expect that. Expect people talk to you if you're parked in the middle of the road. They want to see, hey, what's happening here? Are you okay?
That's good to know, Felipe. And you, I want to talk about accommodation now. Obviously, did you sleep in the forest in the winter? Or was
No, well, that's the
thing?
winter. Yes, that's the winter. But now, as the Saskatchewander 2021, I get to sleep in hotels. And I get to experience high-end hotels and get the elk steak meal and yeah. So there's 5-star hotels. There's also the different with you guys in UK. You don't have those hotels where you park upside up there, right?
Not so much, no.
The different style. So even that coming from Chile, is I'm doing this what they do in the movies. I'm gonna park my car. I'm gonna go into the front desk. It's gonna be a guy with a cowboy hat, maybe, and then I pay for my room. That is a really tourist experience for me when I just moved here.
And what about camping? Is it easy to camp? Are there lots of organized campsites, or is wild camping encouraged? What's the best thing to do?
I think Ashley is the expert on that.
Ashlyn, yeah, okay, let's come to you.
I really love the outdoors. Camping is one of my favorite things to do. We have incredible national parks. Brenda can speak to that. We have wonderful provincial parks, but a really great hidden gem, if you want to get off the beaten track, is to check out the regional parks as well. The last year or two, that's kind of been my MO. And the regional parks are just absolutely incredible. That's where you're going to meet a lot of locals as well. But there's lots of camping. You can show up, you can book in advance. And then we have lots of crown land. So if you did actually want to get off into the wilderness, you can go camp on crown land too. So lots of options for everybody. And whether you're in a tent or if you're in a Camp Easy yurt in some of the provincial parks or authentics, you can go everything from camping under the stars in a sleeping bag to a little more luxury glamping. So we've got it all here.
Amazing. Brenda, what kind of options do you have at Grasslands for people who want to stay?
I think she listed them all. We've got the authentics. Beautiful.
I will say you can even do that, Brenda, in winter, right? We have some yurts that if anyone wants to experience -10, -20 outside, but you're inside your tent comfy with a fireplace. We have that too.
Right. Well, in Grasslands, we don't have the winter experience, but in the winter, you could go backcountry camping, and that's pretty cool because if you're up to that, you got to be pretty tough. But in the summer, backcountry is awesome because you can you're out in surrounded by the hoodoos if you're in the Badlands, in the grasslands, just beautiful grass everywhere. And one thing that I see is that there's lots going on in the day. Okay, so you're camping, you got a place to stay, but at night you have the dark skies, and that is unbelievable. To be just with your sleeping bag and sleeping under the stars, cowboy style, or in your tent with no fly. But there's entertainment night and day. Now for the campsites, you can tent, you can bring your RV, you can you know, there's in the summertime, there's, you know, you have your power, you have Wi-Fi, you have all the things. Like there's the campgrounds are really, you know, well set up, and they're on the edge. So you just kind of just snuck into the edge of the wilderness, right? And the wilderness is beyond. So it's pretty cool. Like you're in the middle of the action, not middle of the action, you're on the edge of the action. You know, yeah. So pretty nice camping.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
One more thing to add to that and really reiterate is I didn't appreciate our night skies in Saskatchewan until I traveled to other locations, and people didn't even get to see the stars. And one thing that makes Saskatchewan so special is the opportunity to see the northern lights. And you can be in the south of Saskatchewan and see them. I was in Grasslands East Block this summer and saw the northern lights all the way down there. But some pretty like unbelievable shows of the northern lights, and the further north you go, the more likely you are to see them, and winter is a great time to see them too. So just unparalleled views of our night skies here.
Oh, that's incredible. I hadn't even thought about the northern lights. That's wonderful. Do you gosh, it's really exciting. Is taking an RV a popular option? Will people rent RVs and drive around? Is that, do you see a lot of people doing that? Yeah. Is it easy?
Yes, we do. I think so. They seem to, like, I don't know where they get them, but they definitely a lot of rentals, and we have a lot of people that cross Canada, right? And so Saskatchewan's right in the middle. So some are going west and some are going east, but for sure they'll stop by. And so that's a good thing. And so with Saskatchewan as an RVer, you know, if you want to get off those paved roads, like that's like Ashley and Philippi mentioned, the gravel, you know, you got to be able to, you know, accept that fact that the gravel, it's just the edge of that's like a pie crust. Okay. You got to get by it to get into the pie. So it's a little bit of trouble, but you know, you can do it, and everybody does. Yes. RVs are great. Yeah.
I can't say myself, I live in an RV for 2 years in Saskatchewan. So I travel like a Class B and a Class C. Class B is the North American version of like a smaller one, and a Class C is a little bit bigger. So
Okay.
the RV culture, they're a little bit different than the European RVs, but I haven't done RV in Europe, but my own research is like we have a lot of like stations here for like dumping, for like power. There's even Ashley, when Ashley was commenting about camping, is even in small towns, they had campgrounds that often, some of them, they're also free. Like if you go, you know, they're also free. They're small towns. So they're a perfect place for put your RV in the middle of the town. I remember, put your flag so people know where you're coming from, go to the local bar, make some friends, and then you end the party like in your campground. It's just a great place to do that. And there's room for it.
So it sounds like Saskatchewan is a great place to enjoy the great outdoors. I mean, if nothing else, there's a lot of outdoors to see, isn't there?
It is because if you look at the map, we have so much latitude and longitude. So you can go, as Ashley say, for the northern lights. That's my passion, like the boreal forest and frozen lakes. And you can ski and do like a week expedition in a frozen lake without seeing anyone. And then you can drive all the way down where Brenda is, and you're like in a safari. Like it's just like you're driving your car, there's a bison, and everything is like really cinematic. Like, so
that's very cool.
That's amazing. It is very, I went there, Brenda, a few months ago, and I couldn't believe it. I was there. It's like, this is like a movie.
In terms of the outdoors as well, I managed to get up fishing. Now, I come from the northeast of England originally, so there fishing is associated with awful weather and cold on piers. But up in summer in mid and northern Saskatchewan, it's absolutely gorgeous to get out on the water, get on a boat, and just watch the wildlife, watch the bird life, you know, have a beer, fish, and they've got some incredibly large northern pike up in the lakes in the north of the province, and it's just such good fun to spend time with other people out on the water. what did I say? What I've just had that picture is in Saskatchewan. So in Otter Lake, I caught this huge northern pike, and it was just so good to get out with people who could then take it for a shore lunch. I thought that was a magnificent experience to be out in the wilds, out in nature, hearing the trees rustle, be by the side of the lake and actually collect wood and cook up the fish that were just caught, and that togetherness and that kind of just eating the fresh food and the simple cooking on the log fire. It's a magnificent way to experience the place and other people.
Stuart, you've just been accused of lying on the chat. Apparently it wasn't that big.
Okay. Well, what you got to do when you fish, right? You've always got to put it out there right by the camera.
I would tell you guys 49 inches pikes. That's a saying in the north. And I used to be a fishing guide. I used to work as a fishing guide. And then there's times when the summer when you had so much light, so you can be fishing for 18 hours if you want, and some people does because it doesn't get dark. Like you had a couple of weeks where like super bright. Wow. And casting every 5 minutes is a normal thing. I didn't believe it, but I can post the pictures after. I used to work as a fishing guide.
Wow, so, that's amazing. Yeah. And presumably it is getting out on the water, even if you're not fishing, is a good way to see some wilderness. Is it easy to go kind of canoeing, kayaking, that kind of thing? Aisling, do you do a lot of that kind of thing? I feel like you might.
I do. We have some of the best whitewater canoeing opportunities in northern Saskatchewan in Canada. Now, you don't have to go whitewater canoeing. You can just go day tripping or weekend tripping. Rick Driediger out of Churchill River Canoe Outfitters up north in Mississippi, he is the go-to company in person for all details. If you want to get out for an afternoon or a multi-day trip, you can book a guided trip through him, or you can take a canoe out yourself. And we have so much wildlife here, whether it's bears and moose or elk. Up in the north, you'll see a lot of bald eagles as well. Like you'll see a dozen bald eagles in a day if you're paddling around. We have lots of deer. There's wildlife everywhere. You can see lynx if you're really lucky. I've just been driving down grid roads and there was, a mom and two of her lynx kittens with her, and they just sat on the side of the road and you got to just enjoy it, right? So much wildlife, and canoeing is a really fantastic way to access that really untouched northern part of the province. But again, we have lakes everywhere, so you can canoe, kayak, board anywhere you want here too. You don't just have to go north.
That's incredible. I want to go to the lake with the lynx kittens though, please. That sounds incredible. Brenda, what would you recommend if people are coming to somewhere like Grasslands? What would you recommend for them if they want to get out into the wilderness?
Hiking, of course, but then if you're not really into that, then I would see the outfitter and rent a horse. They will take you out on an excursion that is priceless. So first they'll match you up with a horse, they'll teach you how to ride, and then away you'll go. And they'll take you to those most beautiful, the really cool areas that are hard to hike to, because it's going to take longer, because those horses will walk a lot faster. So yeah, I'd go horseback. I've ridden all my life, and that's the way to go to see a lot of land in a short time. Yes.
Amazing.
There's a ranch near Hudson Bay in northeast Saskatchewan, and it's an active working ranch, and you can go for wagon rides or horseback rides. But this was so crazy and wonderful to me. So if you've ever heard of Giraffe Manor in Kenya, where you actually get to go dine and eat with giraffes, that's kind of like what you get to do at Fur River Ranch. So Audrey she's a bed and breakfast, and she's the owner of it. She's a Red Seal chef, so you're going to get amazing food. And in the morning, after you finish breakfast, she'll open the side door of the house, and her 8 horses will come running up to the side door, and she will hand you a crate of carrots, and you get to feed the horses from the house at her bed and breakfast. So it's absolutely a wild experience, and she's like 10 pounds of sugar in a 5-pound bag. So it's a perfect place to get away and have a stay and get that horseback ranch experience too.
That's incredible. Those horses know what's good for them, don't they? Are there a lot of ranches to visit? Is it possible to, kind of do a whole ranch experience in Saskatchewan?
I certainly did, and I've got to say it was really accessible because my experience of horses was really limited. I'd probably done a donkey ride as a child, and that was about it. Went over to the Lariata Ranch near Kyle in the south of the province. It's beautiful rolling countryside there, and there's a guy there called George who moved from Germany many years ago. He set up his ranch as to get people over there. He's got A-frame buildings and invites people on for a week at the time to ride. And I didn't really know what to expect, but basically, even a novice like myself, I was up on the horse within no time, and taking it for gallops across the prairies, which was just such an amazing experience because to be there in this beautiful Western setting, it was like being in a Western movie. It really was so magnificent. And then George got us off the horses and had us lassoing, bulls, really. I know Jody was joking before. She said that I was lying about the fish. I'm not going to dig up the size of the cow that I brought down with the lasso. It really wasn't that big.
Not a bull, Jody says.
It wasn't really that big, but it was just great to be able to do that. Really, it was like being in a movie, and to be out there and then to go back to the ranch and sit down together with other people and have dinner on one of these long family style tables and just exchange stories. It was, highly recommended. So I'm sure the rest of the panelists have got other places that they've been and probably enjoyed too.
Rarely have I seen a panelist heckled by the tourist board in the chat before. It was a baby, Jody said. You've got a baby. I think I can catch a baby cow.
Gallery.
Gosh, I've got so many questions I still want to ask. Can I? We'll move on from ranches. I might come back to that in a bit, but let's talk about food and drink, if that's okay. Ashlyn, you said your family run a grain farm. Is that correct? Is that right? There's a lot of grain, I think, in the area, isn't there? Does that translate to good beer?
It does. It really does. So yeah, the bottom half of our province is known as the breadbasket of Canada. We grow lots of grain crops, pulses. You'll get wheat and barley, lentils, and that translates into really good beer. Our craft beer scene has been booming for about 8 years now, really since 2013 it started to take off. So not only will you find craft distilleries in cities, you'll actually find them rurally as well. And even if you fly into Regina, you can actually it's kind of like a little pub crawl around the city, stopping into all the different breweries and distilleries that Regina has as well. So it's definitely a big business, and it's growing even more every year.
Amazing. And what about food? What is Saskatchewan food? What should people not miss if they're coming to Saskatchewan? Just beer. I mean, that sounds good to me. I'm there.
We have lentil beer here. They make beer with lentils. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, I would say for food, one thing that I really love, and when people come to visit me here, I always love to get them something that has Saskatoon berries in it. So some people might know these as June berries. I know that's what they're called in America, but they're these little small kind of purpley blueberries. They're just bursting with flavor. Sometimes they're people liken them to a little bit of a nutty flavor, but they're really fresh and tasty. And so you can pick them in June and July in Saskatchewan, and you see them in lots of drinks and cocktails. A very popular option is Saskatoon berry pie. That's what I like to make sure everybody gets a slice of before they leave here. And we have lots of really fresh, we call it from like field or from farm to fork, because we have so many ranches and grain farms that all the food here is really well done. Lots of it's locally sourced when you stop in at restaurants. We take pride in being able to source all our food locally. And so that's the type of dining experience that you'll get. It's truly remarkable.
One of the things that surprised me as well was that Eastern European food is quite widely available. I think there was quite a big settlement way back by people from the Ukraine and Eastern Europe, and so pierogies and other dishes that you might see more from the European perspective over in Poland or elsewhere, those appear pretty regularly on menus too. So that was just interesting. So I didn't expect that when I first went out there.
I grew up in what's called the pierogi belt here in
Correct.
Saskatchewan. So lots of Ukrainians. And yeah, there's even a drive-through restaurant here in Saskatoon that you can drive through. It's called Baba's Pierogies. And you just take your car through the drive-through and you get a really great meal of pierogies, usually sausage as well, and cabbage rolls. And there's nothing else like it, I think, in the world. I've never heard of anything else like a pierogi drive-through. So yeah, lots of great Ukrainian heritage here.
Just one thing that's
I will add to that, like Saskatchewan being such a good place for business opportunities, right? Because there is so much opportunity. It has attracted like many people from all over the world. And then you see these cultural clashing with each other as the Saskatoon berries pierogies. I had pierogies with Saskatoon berries inside. And then you get all that. But then recently also like indigenous food is coming, like First Nation cuisine is coming, like Bannock burgers, and a lot of like dry fish and wild meat. So it's a little bit of like a new frontier talking about food here. Like,
yeah, that's a really excellent point, Felipe. Thank you for bringing that up. I wanted to ask you, you guys, more about First Nation culture. Is it possible to experience it in Saskatchewan? Can you see it around and explore that?
Yeah, I
Brenda,
would
do you-
say
Sure can.
one of the best locations is super easy to access just outside of Saskatoon here. It's called Wanuskewin. It's a heritage park. They're actually up for potentially, hopefully, being designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And literally last week, they just had this amazing announcement that they actually found rock art, which is fairly uncommon here in more like southern Saskatchewan. You usually find it up in the Canadian Shield, but they have the most northerly medicine wheel in the world. And it's a really great interpretive and heritage center that you can not only go and just stroll the trails and see the bison jump, but they have lots of wonderful interpretive programming. So you can participate and go see a powwow, and you can watch a variety of different Indigenous and First Nations dance and drumming and singing. And they even have a full moon meal at supper time that they serve you some incredible dishes as the moon rises above the Creek Valley. So that's like the pinnacle of a great place to learn more about indigenous culture here in Saskatchewan. But that's not the only one. There's lots of places around the province where you can experience it too.
And also, like, if you put on like your explorer adventure hat, and then you get out to different First Nation places, you're going to have a different culture, a different vibe, a different pace to the adventure. So if you're a good observer, you can really enjoy that.
Amazing, thank you.
If you came to Grasslands, I could show you teepee rings. I can show you the little flints, you know, where they made their arrowheads. That as you walk along, the artifacts are just like thick. So it's really cool because you can see where the drive lanes were in the West Block. So that experience is really cool. Once somebody teaches you what to look for, it's really cool. We have we're neighbors to the Wood Mountain Lakota Reserve, and great people, and they have a powwow every August, the end of July, beginning of August. Great powwow, and like they say, everyone is welcome. So you talk about Saskatchewan being, you know, open. It's open as far as what you see, but it's open as into the culture. You know, people want to know you, and their homes are open to you. So the powwows are awesome. I've been many times, and it's just really cool. You know, like the dance-ins and the giveaways, and you know, just enjoying their culture. Yes.
Thanks, Brenda. Thank you for telling us about that. It's incredible. I'm going to move on slightly. There's two amazing facts that just popped up in the chat. Someone says that Saskatoon has more restaurants per capita than any location in Canada, and also that Saskatchewan is the largest producer of lentils in the world. So that's why you've got to put it into the beer, I guess. I wanted to talk about Saskatoon and Regina as well. Obviously, Saskatchewan is not heavy on cities, so you've got two main choices. I imagine most visitors would arrive at one of those points. So what is let's start with Regina. Regina is the capital, that's correct, isn't it, of Saskatchewan? What is there to see in Regina and do and experience? I don't know who would like to answer this for me. Anyone can jump in.
Well, there's a
My
big park.
favorite.
Sorry. There's a big park in the center of the city, big lake, and a lot of the key attractions are based around there. It's called the Wascana Center, and you've got the legislative building, which is a beautiful domed building that looks out towards the lake, and you've got some really good museum buildings there. One that explains the natural history of the province as well. But also, I think from the perspective of a British visitor, that one of the highlights for me was to go to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Heritage Centre, because that explains the development of the regiment and how it began as an organization to put down rebellion and to make sure that the Americans didn't come up and grab land. And then it puts into context what the mounted police have done over the years and how they've developed into a modern police force.
Brenda, what do you love about Regina?
I like the Royal Saskatchewan Museum. And I think because the dinosaurs are there. And so there's a new replica of Scotty there. And Scotty's our largest and the most complete dinosaur found in the world. So this is really cool. And we, like grasslands, like in those Valley of a Thousand Devils, we have dinosaurs there too. And the Royal Saskatchewan Museum digs out of there and takes them over to East End. But in Regina, the RSM, like the artwork in that museum is fantastic. You can't tell when you're looking at their displays where the real stuff ends and the paintings begin. Like it is just absolutely fantastic. But that's my favorite.
Sounds good to me. Felipe, you're a cool guy. Where would you go to have fun? If you were going out in Regina, going out in Saskatoon, can you have a good time? Is there music, culture, art?
Yeah, a lot of live music. Actually, I used to be a musician for a living back in the day. So I found the most living musicians here in Saskatoon, actually, people just making a living off music. With the COVID, I don't know how is that going right now, but before that, and then here, at least in Saskatoon, we had the river, and it gives us the option to go skiing or like snowboarding, like on the shore of the river. So 10-minute drive of here, you are in the forest. You will see a coyote, right? Just 10 minutes drive from. That's where I go every morning to take my dog for a run. We go to the river, and many people does it. If you like, I'm right now into kite, like to put a kite and then you go skiing. Like we do that and do it inside of the river. That's what I enjoy. That's what I choose to live here, actually, because I have all the commodities of like a city. As I said before, you can have like a 5-star hotel. You have like a big events, entertainment, but just a bike ride. I can be on the forest. I can be on the river. Ashley likes canoeing. You can be canoeing. You can be, yeah.
Amazing. You make it sound extremely appealing, I have to say.
People go fishing too, right? Some people, I come from a big city. I'm from Santiago, Chile, 7 million, right? In my mind, there was never room for like, hey, I want to go fishing today, Tuesday, right? You can do that here after work.
And I think Saskatoon, that's where the culmination of all this great food that we grow in the province, you know, the creativity with some of the chefs that we have in the city here. And yeah, it was mentioned we have so many restaurants to go and visit. I always recommend our downtown core in another neighborhood called Riversdale. One of my favorite restaurants is probably The Odd Couple. The chef there, Andy Ewan, he kind of blends Vietnamese and Chinese food with prairie food as well. So you kind of get that blend of it. And then I always recommend to anybody coming into the city to check out the Ramey Modern Art Gallery. It's an absolutely beautiful structure on the shoreline of the river here, and they always have rotating exhibits and galleries, and they're very, very current, but they also have one of the world's largest collections of Picasso lino cuts as well. So it's very cool to come in and check those out, and you get to come to Saskatoon to see that.
That's amazing. Gosh, it's almost time for us to move on to our Q&A. I've got more questions, but let's ask some questions from our audience. I've got quite a few here, and there's one that's come up a few times. It just says, "What's the best time to visit?" Now, I guess that depends on a lot of things. It depends what you're looking for. But let's talk about winter. Is winter a decent time to visit? What could you do if you came in the winter?
I am a very passionate advocate for winter. It's my favorite season. I love it so much. I think we're very lucky to get snow for almost half of the year. Not everywhere does. I always recommend if you are going to come visit in winter, you do want to come prepared. It's not about bad or cold weather. It's about bad clothing. So you're going to want good boots and shoes. We call them toques, but they're beanies that you put on your head. Mittens, lots of layers. And I always recommend more wool layer than cotton, just because you are getting damp or wet. Wool will keep you warm, whereas cotton won't. But we have all of the winter activities that you can imagine. I really love cross-country skiing. When you get out into the forest, it's pretty spectacular. We have lots of warm-up shelters along the way. You can snowshoe. We talked a little bit about it earlier, but you can winter camp, and I promise it's not as bad as it sounds. Best part of winter camping is that you just get to have a bonfire the whole time. Ice fishing is really, really popular. So if you're going to come in winter, you can still get out, and you'll see little ice fishing shacks on lakes all around the province. They kind of look like little sprinkles dotting our frozen lakes. There really is a ton of stuff that you can do in winter. You just have to be prepared for the colder weather.
I will recommend, because I bring friends from Chile or from all over the world. They had visited me here in winter. I always tell them, let's figure out the clothes here, because we have more options. Because I found out sometimes what they bring here, this is too bulky, this is too many jackets. Here's the layering system, so you can go play with the jacket on, take it off. So get a contact in Saskatchewan when you come here, and then we have a lot of clothes.
I was just asked if you can rent snowmobiles, because they're a snowmobiler. Is it possible to do that? You can rent equipment when you're there. Would you say that's straightforward?
Yeah.
There are a few locations that you can rent, and we have over 10,000 kilometers of groomed snowmobile trails too. So you can pretty much go to any corner of the province and have a good time. Lots of snowmobile shelters too. So you get to have a, hot dog roast and hot chocolate while you're out snowmobiling.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
There's a snowmobile clubs. They just send me their map for the year. So there's people really passionate about this. So you will make friends really easy if that's what you like.
Fantastic. That's great. Brenda, if people were visiting grasslands in the winter, what would you recommend they do?
Well, you can hike, but you are on your own. There's no staff. There's going to be no plowed roads. There's going to be no facilities. So, but you can do it. Like I said, if you're tough enough. So you can, drive to the nearest spot and then, then hike out, but be sure to let someone know where you are. And if you plan to camp out overnight, you can call the visitor center and book your backcountry permit, so that, they know you're in there, but they're not responsible for you.
You're really out in the wilderness. It's quite exciting.
The snow can get very, very deep.
Yeah.
And blizzards are bad. And so it is very remote. Yeah. So remember, it's remote. Yeah.
Well, we've just seen the snow on a warm day, so I feel like we're prepared. Stuart, I'm guessing you didn't visit in the winter if you were fishing and catching.
No, I went in the summertime, and one of the things that I would recommend then is there's in Regina, there's the sunset retreat ceremony. Again, it's the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and the parade on the ground there, and it's a good way of seeing the dogs, that they've trained, the parade, and just understand a bit more about the heritage of it. And because there's a guy who stands there with a mic and explains again how it's developed, but it's just very interesting to see that. I think that's definitely a good thing. And again, really in summertime, the horse riding from the perspective of somebody who'd never done that before, to get out and do it, and just to that.
Oh, he's overwhelmed with the horse riding.
Experience of being on the prairies in the outdoors, and really, I just had there was a bit of disruption on the line there. Sorry, so it was kind of. Well, I'm back.
Yeah, you froze for a second, but I think we got the gist. I think it was all good. Let's talk a little bit. My next question is: are there many hot springs? Are there hot springs in Saskatchewan? Can you experience that?
Not in the same way that you could in like neighboring British Columbia, but there are, I do recommend if you go to Moose Jaw, they do have the spa there, and they do have an artisanal well that they do pull warmer water up from. So you can stay in the hotel and you can enjoy, they have both an indoor and an outdoor pool. So yes, even in the wintertime, you can sit out in warm water and enjoy the cold weather, not be too cold. So not as many hot springs as some of our neighboring provinces, but we still have a few options here.
And
we like to do hot tubs. We like to do hot tubs and saunas. So a lot of places that you might stay, bed and breakfast or Ness Creek, up kind of more in northern Saskatchewan, they have a sauna, and lots of places have hot tubs too.
Okay, so saunas are popular. And do you have is there a sauna tradition, for instance, like in Finland, where you then run into a freezing lake, or do you just stick to the sauna?
People do that too. People will hop out, roll around in the snow, and then hop back in the hot tub. Definitely popular. And some people even do ice dipping, cold water dipping down near Estevan in the southeast. They have the Boundary Dam Power Station, and so the reservoir there doesn't freeze over in the wintertime. So actually in March, I went and did a little polar dip with some of the locals in Estevan. It was cold, but it was a lot of fun.
Well, I think you might be a bit hardier than me, Ashlyn. Jody in the chat has just said Manitou Lake is second only to the Dead Sea in mineral content, so you can float. Wow. Have any of you done that?
Yes, I was out there this summer, and you can literally lay in the lake with a newspaper or a book because it's so buoyant. So you can float in the lake, and then in the winter months and in the summer too, they do have the spa, and they pull in that mineral water into the pool indoors, so you can enjoy it all season since it'll be frozen over in the wintertime. But it's a very unique place to visit, and it's just like the Dead Sea, but Saskatchewan and Canada's version of it.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, what about somebody's asked about whale watching? Is that possible in Saskatchewan? I'm not sure that you can't really get to the right bit, I wouldn't have thought. But kind of obviously you can fish. It's not quite the same, is it? What about
fish?
We have sturgeons that are like 200 years old fish. They're like huge.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
Yes, I'm really impressed by that.
What somebody's asked about in Saskatoon, what's the typical architecture like? That's an interesting question. What's it like in Saskatoon with kind of buildings? And is it other high rises, or is it?
I wouldn't say it's not massively high rise, but one of the magnificent Canadian railway hotels is in Saskatoon. So it's a real eye-catching building. One of these grand. I don't know if it's 1920s, 1930 Art Deco influenced buildings that really, you can look at it from the riverside, and then from there it's only a couple of minutes right into the city centre. It's fairly low rise in the grand scheme of things, and laid out on a grid pattern as per so many North American cities. So it's easy to navigate and get around. So even as a first-time visitor, sort of a little bit disorientated from a plane journey, it was easy to really get the bearings and to find my way around. So
that's nice. It's quite a nice place to arrive into. You're kind of getting.
And the River Modern, which is the newish art gallery, I think was opened in 2017. That overlooks the river, and that's a pretty stunning piece of modern architecture too.
Fantastic. We're coming incredibly close to the end of the session. So I'm going to ask you all for your top 3 don't miss tips. So if somebody was a first time visitor to Saskatchewan, what would you recommend to them personally that they absolutely should not miss? Brenda, can I come to you first? Is that okay?
Sure. Well, of course, I have to say the Valley of the Thousand Devils.
Of course.
Because, yeah. So that's a must. So the next one, I think, is the Harvest Eatery in Shaunavon. You know, they have the beef there is it's awesome, right? They, I know the fellow that runs the butcher shop, you know, so local, all local, and like the most excellent chef. Then, of course, then my next favorite thing is dinosaurs. And so you'd have to go to the T-Rex Center in East End. You know, then that would lead you to the RSM in Regina. But yes, so yes, you got dinosaurs, then you got food, and you got more dinosaurs. There you go.
Sounds good to me. That's great. Stuart, what about you? What are your kind of 3 standouts from your trips to Saskatchewan?
I think that getting out onto the ranch and horse riding and you know, getting real cowboy out there, that was I've never done that, so that for me was something that I would recommend. People want to try that. I say just getting up and spend a bit of time in Prince Albert National Park and getting an impression of the varied landscapes of the province. That was great to do, and to fish near there. And you know, given that the Royal Canadian Mounted Police have got their training base over in Regina, I think to experience that while you're in Saskatchewan as well is to see and to experience that is a reason to go to Regina in itself.
Amazing. Thank you, Stuart. What about you, Felipe, as the official Saskatchewan wanderer? What would you recommend?
Well, I will start down south with the Good Mountain Rodeo. I went there. This happened in the second weekend of August, and it's the most authentic thing you can ever see. People had wearing huge buckles, cowboy boots, and that's what they live. That's who they are, what they do every year. So you can be that's a really good place just to go and take pictures. It's an amazing experience. The other one I have here is the Athabascan Ice Roads. If you follow any of these ice road shows, we had ice roads here. I think that one is 200 kilometers. You can drive to it. So that's quite unique experience. I experienced the ice road of Saskatchewan. And next is my city here in Saskatoon. I love this place. Perfect combination between all the features, like cool city, and you had the landscape, you had the space, and you had the adventure on the river.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Felipe. And what about you, Ashlyn? What would you recommend?
I mentioned it before, but I would highly recommend a visit out to Wanuskewin, and it is on Treaty 6 territory in the homeland of the Métis here in Saskatoon as well, which is important to mention. So I recommend it out there. Like Stuart mentioned, Prince Albert National Park. It's one of the most popular parks, especially in the summer months. But if I were to recommend a place, if you came in the winter time and you wanted to see wildlife and nature and get outdoors, there's free cross-country ski rentals and snowshoes. If you stay at the hotel, you get the hot tubs, you get that snow experience, ice skating rentals as well. It's a really incredible place to go, and it's easy to travel if you're coming from abroad. And then the third experience I always recommend is camping or glamping. So again, not everybody travels with a tent like I sometimes do, but you can have glamping experiences here, whether you're staying, you know, in a nicely remodeled Airstream or a grain bin. You can actually stay in like a luxury grain bin or yurts. We have a lot of glamping options as well to make it a fun way to get out into our parks.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ashlyn. A luxury grain bin is a phrase that I didn't think I was going to hear today, but you know, life is constantly surprising, isn't it? And we've actually come to the end of our time. I can't really believe it. I did have more questions to ask you, and I think you might have persuaded me, Ashlyn, that I want to get outside and camp in the snow, which is not something I thought I'd ever say. I just really want to say a really, really big thank you to our panel, to Brenda, Ashlyn, Stuart and Felipe for being so wise and full of goodness and great tips. Thank you so much. And obviously, thank you also to our sponsor, Saskatchewan Tourism from Canada, who obviously want you all to come. So, you know, let's get traveling again. We're looking forward to seeing the world. If you've enjoyed this Travel Geek session, we do have another one very soon in December. It's on Malaysia. So that's going to be a taste of Malaysia, which I'm also really looking forward to. A little bit different, a bit warmer perhaps, but equally wonderful. Yeah, and I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. And we look forward to seeing you again at another National Geographic Traveller Travel Geeks event. Thanks. Good night.